Hello and welcome to the Baggies Podcast. It's episode 20. It's a bit of a milestone here for the podcast. 20 episodes of doing this podcast on West Bromwich Albion, and it's been a fantastic journey. And it's what a week for the podcast as well. Not only the 20th episode, but an appearance on TalkSPORT, which I'm going to be playing to you in this episode, and also the launch of our YouTube channel with exclusive YouTube content. We did a match preview for the Sheffield United game, which is still on the channel now if you want to go and have a watch of that. And there will also be a match review and a preview for the Crystal Palace game coming this week. But anyway, I can finally utter these words. West Bromwich Albion have won a Premier League game this season. We beat Sheffield United 1-0 at the Hawthorns. We're going to be going into all that. We're going to be going through the lineup, the first win of the season. You'll also get to hear my interview on TalkSPORT 2, and we're going to give a little bit of a build-up to Crystal Palace. Of course, you guys have been getting involved as well, answering the questions on Twitter, and also voting in a couple of polls that we've done, one being the Baggies Man of the Match, and one being another question on everyone's lips. Should Sam Johnston be called up for England? So, without further ado, if you're new to the podcast, make sure you're liking the video. If you're on YouTube, subscribing on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and also subscribing on YouTube, making sure you're checking out our YouTube content as well. But what a week for the podcast, and what a week for West Bromwich Albion. Let's get straight into this. The Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Now available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So, as I mentioned, plenty to discuss in this week's episode of the Baggies Podcast. So much to go into, and what a week, as I've said, it's been for the podcast and for West Bromwich Albion. So, without further ado, let's talk about the lineup in which we took to the pitch against Sheffield United with. We played a 5-3-2, as we've become accustomed to over the past few weeks, with the only change being Callum Robinson in for Grady Diangana, Sawyers keeping his place in midfield, and Pereira playing in that more central role, in that central attacking midfield role, which was really nice to see, I have to say. Yeah, we've been waiting for Pereira to play in that sort of centre attacking mid. It's very clear that he's far more effective in that position rather than out on the wing. It's one of those things, but we just hope that we can get Grady involved and get his confidence up, because he's not looked the player that he was last season. Just finding his feet in the Premier League, I think that is the case. So hopefully there's a spot in that lineup for him. We also played that 5-3-2, which is something that we've become accustomed to over the past few weeks with playing Man United, playing Spurs. We were expecting that sort of formation. We went for Johnston in goal, Ajayi, Ivanovic and Bartley as the three at the back, with Furlong and Townsend as wing-backs, Sawyers and Gallagher as the two centre midfielders, Pereira in behind Grant and Robinson. Again, we matched Sheffield United's formation in a way with that 5-3-2 or 3-3-4 3-5-2 as well. Also works. So yeah, we went for that sort of formation. The same as Sheffield United, so we could sort of match them in that part. They went for Ramsdale in goal, Bryan, Egan and Basham across the three at the back, with Lowe and Baldock as wing-backs, Fleck, Norwood and Berger in centre midfield, with Burke and McBurney up front. As you probably heard, Robinson and Burke played against their former clubs, obviously doing that swap deal for them earlier in the summer, which has proved to have worked out for West Bromwich Albion, I'd have to say. Not so much for Sheffield United. However, we're going to talk more about Sheffield United in a little bit with how they played. So the only event of the game really was Conor Gallagher getting the goal. But there's plenty of other chances which we're going to go into. But the lineup was a good one, I think one that was highly anticipated. Kieran Gibbs and Jake Livermore both, after having positive tests for COVID-19, have now had negative tests for them. So they're over. That virus has now left their system, but unfortunately they are still recovering from the symptoms of it. So Slaven Bilic said that they weren't available to play, which is fair enough. Lots of people can get incredibly ill from it, and it is a difficult one to recover from. So Livermore and Gibbs were not in the matchday squad this week. So in the end, it was a good lineup played by Slaven Bilic. Probably couldn't have asked for a better one, really. Made the correct changes in terms of what was needed for this game. A good lineup indeed from Slaven. So yeah, it was the best line that we could have picked out of the players that we got available. But as I said, I can finally utter these words: we have won a Premier League game this season, and I can safely say that we worked our socks off in this game. It was a topsy-turvy clash, really, with plenty. It was a very tight game. I said in my match preview, which is on YouTube, that it was going to be separated by one or two goals, and I was right with that prediction. It's going to be a tight game, going to be one where both teams would have the opportunity to take an advantage and take the edge over the opponent, and it proved to be that exactly. We played very well. I thought for most parts of the game, the Sheffield United came out the traps really quickly. You'll notice over the first 5-6 minutes, they were all over us. Really, they set the tempo for the game, they set the intensity of the game, and started to come out and attack us right from the off. Which for me as a West Brom fan, I was watching that and I was like, oh my god, are we going to concede here? Early on, and it's going to, not be the advantage start that we wanted to. But in the end, Conor Gallagher got his first West Bromwich Albion goal. A corner floated in from Mateus Pereira, headed away at the front post by Sander Berge, and came over to Conor Gallagher, who it was a weird shot in a way. It's sort of like a inside the foot on the volley, and sort of trickled into the bottom corner. It seemed to go so slowly when it went into the back of the net. But there couldn't have been a person that I'd have wished a goal on more than Conor Gallagher. Superb so far this season, on loan from Chelsea, as you'll already know. Been making England under-21 caps as well. So it's fantastic to see him, his career flourish, and for things to start getting better for him as a footballer, and being at West Brom is allowing his career to develop. And obviously his first Premier League goal, obviously being on loan at Swansea and Charlton last season, did really well, and we're glad to have him here at the Hawthorns, really. But he's been fantastic so far this season, the real box-to-box midfielder, and I couldn't have wished anybody else to score. Another special mention from the game is Sam Johnston. What a fantastic performance again, 2 weeks in a row from Sam Johnston. He was brilliant, and I thought that how has he gone from this goalkeeper that people, I have to say, slated quite a lot, myself included. I have to hold my hands up to that. I wasn't a big what's the word, advocate for Sam Johnston. I even talked about on the podcast replacing him for this season, and I now have to track back on that for the way it's been going. Doing fantastically well. Obviously, I'm not a hater of Sam Johnston, and never have been, but I've been a bit of a critic of his communication and his domination of his penalty area. His shot stopping has never been in doubt. Let's be honest. We've always known that he has that shot stopping in him, but he's just proving everybody wrong. He's bounced back, as I said on the interview on TalkSPORT. He's really bounced back from that mistake against Tottenham Hotspur, and he's come back into the Man United game absolutely outstanding. Unlucky not to get a man of the match there, and a penalty save to add to his collection. And obviously, this game against Sheffield United, making save after save after save. A really early one from Ollie Burke, stopping him from getting a goal at the Hawthorns, where he tipped the ball over the bar from a flicks-on header. It was a fantastic save, and there were so many more of them in the match. And for me, man of the match all day long. And the question on everyone's lips is, should he get an England call-up? And my opinion is that he should. Is there a better English goalkeeper in better form at the moment? I probably wouldn't say so. He's working his socks off. He's making the saves that we really need him to make. And for me, he's got to be in the England squad. He's been fantastic for us so far this season. A few little mistakes like the one against Tottenham, but overall, there isn't a better English. There isn't an English goalkeeper in as good a form as Sam Johnston at the moment. I see no reason why he shouldn't take to the England. He doesn't necessarily have to play, doesn't necessarily have to be number one, but for him to be in the squad over somebody like Dean Henderson, who's not getting that much football at Manchester United, I think to put Dean Henderson over Sam Johnston would be outrageous, really. But I've put a poll out there for you guys, which is, should Sam Johnston get an England call-up? And you guys have been voting, and 67% of you, 2/3, voted for yes, Sam Johnstone should get an England call-up. 33% no. So yeah, you guys seem to think so. Sam Johnstone as well should be getting an England call-up, agreeing with me on that one. People might be sniffing around him as well. Bigger clubs trying to develop young English talent. Teams might be sniffing around him, like on TalkSPORT. They asked me whether I thought that Sam Johnstone was going to be picked away by a bigger club, and I said, I can't see why not. I can't see why bigger teams wouldn't be looking at him. There are some flaws to his game, his commanding of his box, but actually, I have to say, in the Sheffield United game, he did that fantastically. He may not have come out and caught the ball, but he's certainly coming out and punching. And a lot of people say that's down to Branislav Ivanovic being in the defence. They say people have been saying that gives him a lot more confidence. And I think I'd have to agree with that. When Branislav Ivanovic is there, Sam Johnstone seems to have more confidence coming out and clearing. Maybe it's that personality and that leadership of the back line that Branislav Ivanovic has. Can't say Ivanovic was that good yesterday against Sheffield United. Perhaps looked a bit... I'd say Ollie Burke's pace certainly caused Ivanovic some problems, but I can't say he was that fantastic himself, but he certainly gives Johnstone that confidence, when coming off his line and all that sort of stuff. Another person I have to give a bit of a shout out to in that game was Matheus Pereira. As I've mentioned, he was playing in that more central role, in that central attacking midfield position, and he again looked the part. He did look fantastic behind the strikers. Some class touches in that midfield, world-class touches. Megs in opponents, just bringing the ball down, turning swiftly on the half turn, and making things happen for West Brom. Here's a stat for you. I do like my stats, and this one was, banded around West Brom Twitter, and it was Pereira created 9 chances, which is the most a player has achieved in a Premier League match this season, which is fantastic. That's more than any other player, and couldn't be more proud of him. Really, he really stepped up to the mark last night. Was beneficial in what was a fantastic, in the end, win and performance for West Brom. But the question is, did we potentially get a little bit lucky? And I might have to say yes. And if you listen, I'm going to pop the TalkSPORT clip in at the end of this segment. And that is, did we get a bit lucky? And yeah, I'd say we probably did. Sheffield United had ample chances to score in that game. So many chances that they could have had to put the ball in the back of the net. They could have won. Probably, I'd say with the clear-cut chances they had, they could have probably won 3 or 4-1. I mean, we had some chances as well, don't forget. But they did have their fair amount of chances. They had 21 shots, we had 17. They had 17 chances created, we had 13. So they did have their chances to score, and they fluffed their lines. You have to say, when it came to finishing in front of goal, we took the big chance that we had, really. They missed some real sitters. The ones that come to mind were Ollie McBurney, George Baldock, and Lysa Musset also having chances to score, really. They're looking pretty bad, I'm afraid, Sheffield United at the bottom of the table. They really couldn't hit a barn door if they were out there all day. And things are looking worrying. They're now sort of cut adrift at the bottom of the table. They're 5 points off us, who've climbed up to 17th in the table as I speak now. Obviously, if Fulham winning their game against Leicester this evening, that could all change. Obviously, you'll know that by today, which is Monday when this is coming out. But Sheffield United looking a bit worse for wear at the bottom of the table. I'm a bit concerned for them. They're looking pretty cut adrift at the bottom of the table. But it's good for us because we're now out of that relegation zone as I speak, and we're looking good now with 6 points. 6 points from 10 games. Not the best form, but also not the worst as well. And we look to be sort of building on it. So here is my TalkSPORT clip. So I was invited to go on TalkSPORT last night after the match and talk about the game. On TalkSPORT 2 after their live coverage of the Sheffield United and West Bromwich Albion match. So I'm going to pop that in just about now so you can listen to it.
A sigh of relief this evening, I imagine.
Oh, well, I'm incredibly relieved after finally getting our first of the season, really. in the end, we hung on, I'd say, with the chances that Sheffield United had. But I'm really relieved to get the first win of the season.
Look, there's a chance that if Burnley kind of don't turn things around, this may end up being, a 4-5 team league down there, and at that point you only have to finish top two of that 4 or 5. So you are now within every chance, but we talked about it before the game. The form really since February hasn't been great, and they kind of limped over the line a little bit. Can it be a turning point, or is this a kind of sticking plaster over the wound?
Well, I think we've been building up to this sort of performance and this sort of victory for quite a few weeks now. I mean, building up to that Fulham game in which we didn't play very well, we built up with an all-right performance against Burnley, a really good second-half performance against Brighton, and you thought that those two performances would lead to a win at Fulham. However, we didn't really turn up on that day, and we were well beaten in that game. But with this, we've had two really good games against Tottenham and Man United, both in which we were unlucky to lose. And we felt that it was really, building up to this game against Sheffield United, in which, yes, we hung on for a point, but it could really be a real confidence boost for the players, and hopefully it's going to push them forward into the future games.
Outside of probably the Everton game very early in the season, I think Leicester put 3 past you as well, but rarely thrashed, I think it's fair to say. And I think a lot of people would have taken an opportunity to have seen you on national TV and seen the form of Johnston in goal and of Sam Johnston and thought to themselves, might be a special player here. He was impressive tonight.
Oh, he was absolutely outstanding. He was outstanding last week against Man United. He made quite a big mistake against Tottenham, but he's really bounced back over the last couple of games in this one against Sheffield United. If I were teams across the country, I'd certainly be looking at him. Are there many better English goalkeepers, in this sort of form at the moment? I probably wouldn't say so. Yeah, he's certainly been absolutely fantastic over the past couple of games for us.
Now, despite getting the 3 points, there was a lot of Sheffield United pressure in the second half. They wasted 3 or 4 good chances. And, of course, you need a slice of luck as well. But, this has to be a building block. So what more do West Brom need to do? Where do they need to improve? And what changes might you like to see?
I'd just like to see more of that, really. Every player giving their all until the final whistle. It's been the same in the past couple of games, as I've said. But, this game, we really built up to it. And it was something that we really needed to, a game that we really needed to win. As you said about that sort of mini-league at the bottom of the league, Sheffield United are one of the teams that we really need to be beating. And although we did get perhaps a bit lucky with some of the chances and the missed opportunities that Sheffield had, I feel like just more of this would be fantastic to see, over the future games. If we play like that, we've got every chance of staying up, I think.
I want to ask a question before we move on, Louis, about something Marcelo Bielsa said this week. Steve Bruce echoed it, and you as a Baggies fan in an area in the West Midlands, which is going to be in Tier 3 when we enter the tier system version of lockdown coming up shortly, so won't be having fans in the stadium. Are you a fan of fans being in stadiums in general, even if they can't be in every stadium?
Well, I'd say that perhaps if fans are allowed in one ground, it perhaps is an advantage for teams. For example, you've got London there. Teams in London are allowed a couple of thousand fans in each stadium. So perhaps if we went and played a London team, they might have a bit of an advantage. However, I've heard that fans aren't being allowed to shout or sing or anything like that. So perhaps the atmosphere would be, not as good as a normal game and not as much of an advantage. But with the fans being there, perhaps it is a bit of a disadvantage for those who can't have fans in the stadium at the moment.
And because it is lockdown, how are you going to take an opportunity to celebrate your win?
I'll probably have a watch of the TV with the family. Perhaps a beer as well.
He's going to treat himself, Louis. That's good to know. Thank you very much, Louis. I'm sure it'll be a raucous episode of the Baggies Podcast this week after finally getting their first win of the season. Let's speak with Joe. He runs the Baggies.
So there you go. That was my interview on TalkSPORT 2 on their match reaction to the West Brom Sheffield United game. So we've already gone into plenty of detail about the Sheffield United game, but obviously the ultimate thing remains. We've got our first win of the season in the Premier League, and we're going to have to build on that. So where can we build on that? And that is the next game against Crystal Palace, who have lost their last 2 games. Lost to Burnley and lost to Newcastle United as well. It's a big chance for another win. If we play the right game, as far as I'm aware, I think Wilfried Zaha is still out. I'm not 100% sure as that, but I've heard rumours that he won't be appearing in the game when we play them next. I think it's Saturday. I'm not 100% sure on that either. But it could be touch and go whether Zaha is available for the game against Crystal Palace on Sunday, the 6th of December. So, yeah, it's a big chance for another win. And there's going to be a match preview on our channel as well, which is going to be available for you guys to watch on YouTube. If you go and drop a subscribe on there, that description on there, that'll be fantastic, because we're edging closer to 200 subscribers on there, and hopefully we're going to help us achieve our goal of 1,000 subscribers, which is sort of our long-term goal, but 200 at the moment. If you can help get us to that'd be fantastic. So if you go on YouTube and search the Baggies Podcast, just drop a subscription there, that'd be fantastic, and you can watch the match preview for Crystal Palace. I think it's going to be an excellent game. It's going to be one that we could potentially get some points from. Hopefully the confidence from yesterday's game is going to bring and shine through really for the West Brom players. And hopefully it's all going to go well. Match preview is coming soon on the channel for that, so make sure you keep your eyes out for that one. But anyway, without further ado, it is time to bring to the end of this Baggies Podcast episode. It's been fantastic having you along, and good to report a West Bromwich Albion win. Hopefully we can report on much more often in the future. But without further ado, that brings us to the end of the podcast. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you drop a follow on Twitter at the Baggies Pod. Make sure you're subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and even leave us a positive review, which you can now do. You can, choose how many stars you want to give us or whatever, and leave us a review on the Apple Podcast page. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Hopefully I'll see you again next week, and hopefully I'll have another win to report for you. But without further ado, that brings us to the end. So I'll see you next time. Have a great week, Baggies fans, and come on you Baggies. The Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Now available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts and Spotify.